Let's bring in our next guest, radio host Curtis Sliwa. He's also the founder and CEO of the Guardian Angels. Curtis, it's great to be with you today. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year to you and to all your loved ones out there.
Oh, yeah, and absolutely to you and everybody else out there who's watching.
All right, there's a couple things I want to talk about with you. We talked about the UN and some of those big stories, but as we wrap up 2017 here, I'm fascinated personally about how big this NFL story has become. Were you surprised to see this issue get blown up so big and have so many people care about it? In fact, the AP naming it the sports story of 2017.
No, actually, for me, the #1 sports story is when the United States did not make World Cup.
Yeah.
Because I hate that fake, phony, fraudulent football they spell with a U, soccer. So I was like raising the roof. I hate that propaganda. I love American smash mouth football. But I really thought the story that superseded this, because the NFL has been having its problems over the years, is baseball. Once again, was like resurrected. Eventually into a World Series in which we watched Houston beat the Dodgers. Great World Series. In fact, Houston beating my beloved Yankees in order to get into the World Series, and Houston that had suffered from that hurricane. What a great gift that was to the people in Houston. So baseball was always my #1 national sport. I recognized that football had superseded it. But all these overpriced, overpaid, whining football players sitting on their tuchus, holding hands, holding their jockstrap, hiding out in the clubhouse. Oofa to all of them. Just kick the ball and play football.
I do love what you say about baseball, too, because this is what's great about America is we have choices in this country. If you're fed up with the NFL, you can wait a few months. Spring training will be here in the beginning of February, a couple months away. It's not that far away. You know, as much as I'm a Braves fan, so I have a little chip on my shoulder about your Yankees, Curtis. They're going to have a great team next year. That's going to be with Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton. They're going to be tough to beat. That's going to be, I think, the story we're going to be talking about is how good the Yankees are. My opinion. Unfortunately, I know a lot of Yankees fans out there are very happy about that. The other thing I want to talk about you, Curtis, is the war on Christmas. Of course, Donald Trump taking credit for the American public being allowed to celebrate Christmas with impunity again, saying Merry Christmas in public. Here's the tweet. People are proud to be saying Merry Christmas again. I am proud to have led the charge against the assault on our cherished and beautiful phrase, Merry Christmas. Even if you are not a Trump fan, you got to love the way he plays this stuff up. I love the fact that Donald Trump took this message on as his own. He's now the president. He played up the Merry Christmas thing. But just for the record, Curtis, have you had any trouble celebrating Christmas the previous 8 years? Were you feeling?
No. No, I had no trouble. If I walked up to somebody and said Merry Christmas and they didn't respond, my attitude was, okay, later for you. But I think the president and everything he does, even the times he deserves our credit, he embellishes everything. He's always embellishing things. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, Kwanzaa, whatever the hell that holiday is.
And for the record, Curtis, I do want to mention that the president did send out a Happy Kwanzaa message today. He was back to work. I know a lot of people on the left criticizing President Trump because he was playing golf today. But they did get the official message out. Happy Kwanzaa to everybody who celebrates.
Do you really think he knows what Kwanzaa is? I don't know what Kwanzaa is. Do you know what Kwanzaa is? That's a fake, phony, fraudulent holiday that was created years ago out of political correctness. So you understand he says, Merry Christmas. I brought it back to the forefront. Then he sends out a message, Happy Kwanzaa. But if you were to cross-examine the president and most Americans, they would have absolutely no idea, like me, what Kwanzaa is.
Yeah, I probably should be better educated on Kwanzaa. I do know they celebrate virtues, and I don't want to belittle the holiday, Curtis, because I like to celebrate Merry Christmas in my household, but far be it from me to tell other people what to do with their time. At least that's just my take on the whole issue. But
no, as long as we sell product, as long as we can create holidays and we can make that cash register sing and ring, what do we need to know about the holidays? As long as we make the moolah shmoolah, right? As long as we make the ducats, as long as we add to the GNP.
Well, I think that might be, you know, some hardened capitalist opinion, but I do feel like if you celebrate Christmas, if you go to Mass, if you make Christmas really about Christ, if you celebrate Christmas, make it about Christ. And I think every year that I've done that, Curtis, I've had a better Christmas, no matter how many presents I got or bought for anybody else. That's just, you know.
Yeah, but do you really think this was all about Jesus Christ, JC? Or was it really about the fact that people felt better about the economy and started tapping their credit cards and getting more into debt in order to fuel this economy? You really think everybody had on their mind, oh, yeah, this is really praise to JC, the Almighty?
No, I
No
don't.
way.
I do think this is
becoming
part
more and more secular.
I do think this is part of Trump's genius, if that's the appropriate term, when it comes to dealing with the media. Both of these stories, and this is partly why we wanted to bring it up. The way Trump handled the NFL controversy, he co-opted that whole thing. He's a master of this. He picked out Colin Kaepernick and made Colin Kaepernick the enemy of this story, the bad guy, the black hat of this story. Trump says this isn't right. He also takes out Roger Goodell, or takes him down a few notches as well in the entire process. And a lot of the NFL owners, and don't forget, Donald Trump had an existing issue with NFL ownership when he was running the New Jersey Generals and the USFL. He always had a thing for the NFL. So this was genius by Trump to highlight the Colin Kaepernick issue and co-opt the message and make it about a protest against America as opposed to what Colin Kaepernick wanted it to be.
But it was also
the Merry Christmas thing too.
A great opportunity to distract and deflect our attention away from more important issues. This is something the president does on a regular basis when the heat is on. Coming off of Charlottesville, remember, that's when the whole NFL thing kicked off, when all of a sudden the president went down to campaign against Judge Moore with Luther. Yeah, I'm here for Luther. Well, we saw what happened to Luther. And then he decided, yeah, and you tell that SOB to get the hell off the field. And that set it off. But it also distracted us and deflected us from other issues. This is what this president does magnificently, because I don't consider this to be the most prominent issue that a president of the United States should be dealing with.
Now, of course, that's the subtext of all this. You know, why did these stories really get to the place where they are, being so important when you look at the total amount of coverage that they received versus the issues that we do have going on, like potential nuclear war with North Korea, Obamacare, repeal or lack thereof, this issue with the border being porous and everybody coming across the border. I mean, there are major issues. Do you think Americans as a whole, they just like to be distracted? We don't want to focus on those bigger issues because they're harder to settle. It's easier for us to argue about things like, should you stand or not for the national anthem, and is there really a war on Christmas?
Well, perfect example, what you let in with Nikki Haley, berating countries who did not join us in moving their embassies to Jerusalem. And now all of a sudden we're going to praise Guatemala. Guatemala wouldn't exist if not for American aid. So you know why they're moving their embassy, because we told them to. You see, it's entertainment that Americans seek. And this president, whether you love him or like him, he's an entertaining president. From the moment he wakes up in the morning and he starts tweeting to the moment he gets a few hours at night before he starts the process all over again, he leads and he sets the tone of what we're going to be talking about in the day. And in many instances, it's very entertaining.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Curtis. You talk about the leadership, and it is definitely not a traditional form of leadership. The president even talked about himself, modern-day presidential versus what most folks feel is presidential. But every journalist, everyone who cares about what's going on in Washington, D.C., they wake up every single morning and check Twitter to see what President Trump tweeted in the morning. And like him or love him or hate him, whatever the above, you got to give the guy credit for being able to capture the attention of the American public like that, to capture the media's attention, and skew things in the direction that he wants them to go. Again, some people might not like it, some people might hate it, but I think it's pretty genius and effective nonetheless.
Well, we'll see. You know, that works against everything out there except for Robert Mueller.
Except for Robert Mueller.
That's one step at a time. One step at a time. All the tweets in the world that the president sends out to his Twitter environment is not going to make Robert Mueller go away.
Yeah, and some of them might actually be doing more harm than good, but that's a bigger story for a different day. Curtis Sliwa, thanks so much for being with us.